So BusyWorks is exposing the music business. Now it's time to expose BusyWorks. And I have a bunch of text messages as receipts. I'm just playing. I've been getting a lot of people commenting, recommending this new BusyWorks series, exposing the music business one day at a time. So let's check it out. I'm putting my headphones on.
Okay, a lot of people are talking about streaming this, getting a million plays here, whatever. Let's talk about the money today and then how you can take that power back. All right, so there's a really important graph that you need to see. I'll link it below. It's from Berkeley Music, and it goes over how money flows in the music industry. So if you want the actual pinpoint components of how this whole system works, just look at the simple chart.
Yep.
So, without becoming a lawyer and going through every single step, let's just kind of look at it.
No, but a lot of people don't understand any of this, and that's a big problem because these are people who are in the music business and who have been for years.
As a broad thing and break it down. It says for radio and radio-like services, blanket licenses determine who gets paid and how much. It just said it right there, a blanket license. Do you negotiate your rates for a blanket license for radio?
Nope.
You don't, which means you have what? Zero power. Okay. So it says broadcast radio, MCs and the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, which then goes to the songwriter and publisher. This is how the money flows. Why are there so many people in the middle? If you do work for your job at Staples, who pays you? Staples. You don't go to Staples and work for Staples and then Google pays you. So the first question is, why is there a middleman in this?
Well, if you're a temp, then you get paid through a temp agency, and the temp agency is pocketing a bunch of the money that would have normally gone into an employee's pocket. So it's kind of a good analogy, except this is the norm in the music business. It's so indirect. So indirect. I've also noticed that a lot of companies who just do contract-based work, especially online, are using these third-party payment processors. And I don't mean PayPal, I mean on top of PayPal. So, for example, if a company wants to hire me for an influencer campaign, they might offer $1,000, right? But that $1,000 is going to the influencer marketing agency, who then will pay me through a third-party company, and that third-party company pays me through PayPal or Stripe. So PayPal or Stripe is taking their cut, right? The third-party payment processing company is taking their cut. The influencer marketing agency is taking their cut. Why are three people taking their cut? Why can't the company just pay me directly? And you're seeing this happen. This is the standard in the music business when it comes to these royalty streams.
Equation, because they want to tax you, because they own services, because what they're doing is digging in your pockets. The more middlemen you have, the more pocket digging there is. Okay, so broadcast radio, just quickly, without even going through the science, look at all these people in the middle. It says in the U.S., terrestrial broadcasters do not pay performers or sound recording copyright owners directly. Why? Because they created systems to offset risk and to do nefarious things.
Let's talk about a nefarious thing. So the way radio works is that radio and other venues that are licensed will pay a PRO monthly fees, and then they submit cue sheets of what they're playing, and that's just metadata. And those metadata get processed by the PROs, and the PRO pays out accordingly. It's more convoluted than that, because a lot of people think if I get one play of my song on the radio, then I'm automatically getting royalties for that. That's not how it works. It's just like streaming. Not all streams are created equal. Not all radio play is created equal. Some radio stations, like if it's a community radio station, they're not even paying those PRO fees. So you're not getting paid off that. Let's talk about something nefarious, and you should look this up if you don't know about black box royalties. So what happens is a lot of musicians will not claim royalties. A lot of music doesn't even get registered with a PRO properly, if at all. And so that's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that are unclaimed. But they should be going to unsigned and emerging recording artists and producers. But at the end of the 2-year, 3-year period, or however long it is, the PROs will just pay that money to their top earners, who are already rich major label artists like Drake and Taylor Swift. Look it up. It's called black box royalties.
You need to break down the myths that you have about the music business, because again, most people treat this like gambling, like a casino, like the lottery mindset. That's what gets people in trouble, is treating this as if you just get one hit, then everything's good. I'm going to get into some stats later where we go over the actual money behind music and not only the negative side, but how do you make money from music? Okay, we're going to get into all this. So for digital stores and on-demand streams, it says how the money flows depends on what entity negotiated the license. Now I want to ask you, there's a very simple question. Your stuff's on TikTok, right?
Yep.
Your music's on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Your music's on Twitter. Your music's on Facebook. Your music's on Instagram. Were you there when they pinned the deal to negotiate your rights to be able to use your music on those platforms?
Absolutely
If the answer
not.
is no, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me in the comments. Were you in the room when they signed that deal to use your music? Oh, were you there when they paid 400 million, let's say $40 million to use the license, to buy a license to use all the music from that platform, that blanket license? Were you there to get any cut of that? Wait, no? Oh, okay. It's because you don't have any power to negotiate over something you don't control. And when you need to wake up from this fantasy, right? So what I'm saying is that you put all your energy to go to a distributor. Okay. So firstly, you have to pay that fee. It's not free. Then that distributor goes to all these streaming platforms, whether Spotify, whether YouTube Music, whether Apple Music, or whatever else people use. I don't even know, Tidal. Okay. Now, those people on those streaming sites give you 0.0003. I'll get to the exact number, but
It's 0.003. That's pretty low. And again, you need equity in the song to even get that. So a lot of producers are more than willing to sell their beats as buyouts. So they don't even get that. They don't even get that.
it's 0.000 something, $3 per stream, which percent of, zero goes to you could just look at this chart yourself. We're not going to get into the going real quick. For digital stores and on-demand streams, how the money flows depends on what entity negotiated the license. Again, that's not you, which means that you don't own any of that negotiation or the cash that comes from those deals. Digital sale, record label goes to you could just look at this chart yourself.
Okay, but this is important too because right now, what's going on is called a. Let me look this up. I took the industry blackout. Shout out to Chantel. She posted this earlier on Instagram. I'm going to bring the graphic in so you can see it. Here are the facts. In 2022, the global recorded music industry earned $26.2 billion in revenue, and 65% of that came from streaming. The majority of it came from streaming. It's hard for many songwriters to make a livable wage from the songs they write. Songwriters make 15.1 of total streaming revenue in the US. Now, before I continue, producers, you are songwriters. I'm not saying this to encourage you to feel like a songwriter. I'm saying this legally, you are a songwriter. When you register or get registered on a PRO for a title for a song that you produced, you are considered a songwriter. The subcategory of you as a songwriter is composer, or maybe it's arranger. It doesn't freaking matter. You are a songwriter, right? So this statistic includes producers. So the people who write lyrics and the people who play instruments and the people who make beats, compose music, they make 15.1% of total streaming revenue in the United States, while record labels make 52 to 57% and DSPs make 27.9 to 32.9%.
Let's do some math. How many streams does it take to get to $1? Let's do 1 and then boom, 0.003. 1 divided by 0.003 is 333 streams. You need to get 333 people to listen to your song to get $1.
This is important. This is producers. This is important because people jump down my throat. Producers, rappers jump on my ass every time I say, don't trade free beats for equity in a song that's not getting any streams. People are like, well, you never know. Yes, we do. I'm not saying don't work with artists for free or don't work with artists for 50-50 splits. If you love someone's music, make it. That's what you should be doing. I'm talking about people jumping in established producers' DMs talking about, yeah, you know what? I want this beat. I don't want to pay for it. What if I give you 50%? Number one, I'm getting a percentage anyway. It might not be 50%, but I'm getting something. Number two, what are you offering me? Because if you are getting 333 streams per song, which is way above average. On average, I think artists are getting under 50. If you're getting 333, you're giving me half of $1 in exchange for my 20 years experience, all the equipment I have, my brand, my time, my energy. And so many producers are willing to do this. So many, and this is I'm talking about equity deals. How many producers out there are like, you know what? I just want to make music for credit. Okay.
Really think about this for a second. You need to get 333 people to listen to your song to get $1. For radio play, the royalty rate in the US is roughly 0.00012 per play per listener for commercial radio. So if a song is played on a station with 1 million listeners, that's about $120. How many radio stations do you know have 1 million active listeners? This is back in the days where Sirius was separate from XM and satellite radio was fresh. That's when you had 1 million listeners. And when you played a song, you can get $120 a song. And when they could pay comedians $500 for an appearance for a radio show, whether it's Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, whatever, those are the days of that type of radio. Radio nowadays is not the same radio as back in the day. I'm not saying money isn't in radio because people still advertise, businesses still advertise on radio, which means the money's still there. It's just the listenership is not there. So how do they gain the listenership? They syndicate through things like Sirius XM, iHeartRadio. All those companies are conglomerates. Ask me about sync fees and license fees. The reason I'm using ChatGPT is because it speaks better English than I do. And for two, it helps me stay on track. Sync licenses are another way to make money. So even if your song goes to stream 1 billion plays, whatever. Oh, you know what? I have to show you something else here. Let me show you it does equations for you as well. Okay, so let's say a producer even can negotiate up to a 5% royalty rate, which most can't. Let's just say they can.
Yeah, the standard is 3.
And you got to remember that this is divided across the 10 producers that it takes to create a hit song nowadays. And I'm not throwing shade.
And it's also a convoluted. It's not a true 5% on raw master royalties either.
Saying this is the economics of the business right now. Let's say a top tier producer has a 5% royalty rate on a hit record that sells 1 million copies. Now, I should have asked ChatGPT, how many streams does it take to be considered
Chad TBT? That's a dope producer name.
1 million. Actually, let me pause this video to pull up that exact number. All right, so we're going to do this in real time. Now, you got to remember, too, in this conversation, it's not just how many numbers does it take. The bots are botting half of these numbers to begin with. Again, what does it do? It takes the money from the person who deserves the money, you uploading music to these different platforms, and it puts it into these people who use these nefarious means of getting streams. And it's hush hush because that is how the app works. The app cannot work if it doesn't have the rights to your music. So of course they're under the gun from these record labels because the record labels run these apps. Without music, the app can't exist. So of course some stuff's going to slide under the radar. Okay, so
that's what Chad Focus was talking about, but you called him a liar.
This is the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA, and the industry standard generally consider 1,500 song streams as equivalent to one album sale. So to get 1 million copies sold on paper, you have to get 1.5 billion streams.
And that's platinum. But again, producers, all of this stuff, that 5% royalty point, that 0.00012% of $1, whatever it is, for the radio royalties, this is all based on equity. So no, royalty points aren't technically equity, but they're equity in a royalty, not necessarily equity in ownership of the master because the label owns the masters. But everything else, all these other royalties, basically, if you don't have equity in either of the two copyrights of a song that you produce, the master or the underlying composition, none of these royalties and these little ass crumbs that BusyWorks is talking about, you don't even get those. So when I see producers more than willing to just fan out and talk about, oh yeah, I'll work for free. I just want the credit. I don't want money. I just want the credit. That's like a cow saying, I just make me a burger. I just want the credit. Turn me into a Big Mac. I just want my name on the bun. Weird stuff. Sync licensing too. I hope he talks again about sync license. Well, I'll just conclude there because I don't want to just run through the man's entire video. You can check him out on his channel. But sync licensing too. I mean, a lot of these syncs are big, $30,000, $50,000. So if you end up getting an offer on a sync, like let's say you produce a song for a Lil Baby or something, and you're one of 3 producers on the record, and they offer a $30,000 sync fee. You don't own any of the master because his label does, but you're still getting something on the side of the underlying composition as a co-writer. And that's the other thing, because, again, you producers, you are co-writers, and sync licenses pay on both copyrights. They pay on the master and they pay on the underlying composition. So if you own a piece of both, great. But if you're working with a major label artist, then you're just going to own your cut of your writers and publishers share on the underlying composition side, but you're still getting money off that. You're still getting a few $1,000s off of that, even though you're splitting with 3 other producers, even though you don't own equity in the master. But again, there are producers out there who will talk themselves out of equity because they want just the credit. Credit is leverage. Nah, bitch, paying your bills is leverage. Having equity is leverage because they have to clear it with you. That's leverage. If you have credit on a record, what kind of leverage is that? This is why I get so frustrated with the producer community, because they just talk out of their asses talking about, oh, credit is leverage. Credit is not leverage. Credit is bragging rights. Credit is a burden if that's all you have, because now you got to convince other people that that credit is worth something because you already fucked yourself out of equity. Ownership is what matters. Ownership has always mattered, but especially in the music business, ownership is what matters. And I think Busyworks is probably getting to that point in this video, and he's probably going to talk about more direct methods of exploiting your own music to make money, because all these other figures that he's showing, it's showing that music is a loss leader. In other words, music is used to sell things, but music in and of itself isn't what's generally making the most money. It can. Streaming can make a lot of money for a lot of people. But if you want to take more control over what you're doing, like if you're a producer, yeah, you can work in the music business, but do you have a mentorship program that you can charge for? Do you have content that you can monetize across the platforms directly? You don't have to go through a label. I guess as directly as you can monetize with a platform. Do you have merchandise? Do you have drum kits and sample packs? If you are a recording artist, can you directly monetize your fan base like La Russell with the backyard concerts? I think that's where Busyworks is going with this. Watch the series. I'm going to continue watching the series and maybe react to some more in the future. Shout out to Busyworks and shout out to you for tuning in. Much success to you. Peace.